Ethan's heart pounded as he stepped onto the polished metal floor of the alien starship. The hum of the engines beneath his feet vibrated through his boots, and the soft glow of the energy panels made the vast corridors seem both futuristic and intimidating. He had worked on human spacecraft before, but nothing like this. The alien design was sleek, almost organic, and every surface seemed to shimmer with a faint energy pulse. His assignment was simple in words: help maintain the starship's technology, but in reality, he was terrified. The crew of this ship was unlike any he had met. They were taller than humans, with violet eyes and silver-toned skin, and they moved with a grace that made him feel clumsy and awkward. His thoughts kept drifting to her, Princess Liara. She had the presence of someone born to rule, yet there was a softness in her expressions that no one else could see. Ethan wasn't supposed to think about the princess this way. He wasn't even a diplomat or a soldier. He was an engineer. His job was to fix problems, not stir emotions. But every time he saw her, his chest tightened, and he found himself imagining what it would be like if she smiled at him with more than just polite curiosity. The day had started like any other. Ethan was checking the energy core stabilizers in the engine room, his hands adjusting delicate conduits, while the alien crew moved gracefully around him. Liara appeared without warning, as she often did, observing the work with keen interest. "You handle these devices differently from my engineers," she said, her voice musical yet commanding. "Why do you do it that way?" Ethan swallowed. "It's a human method," he said, trying to sound confident, even though his hands were shaking slightly. "It's practical. Works most of the time." She leaned closer, examining the glowing panel with her violet eyes. "Most of the time is not enough," she said softly, almost teasing. Ethan felt a flush creeping up his neck. Her attention made it impossible to focus on the circuits in front of him. He tried to push his nerves aside and focus on the task. I need to reroute this conduit carefully," he said, pointing. "If the power surges, it could damage the main core." Liara watched silently, her gaze unwavering. Ethan's hands worked faster, but the more he tried to appear confident, the more clumsy he felt. Suddenly, a sharp spark shot from one of the conduits. He yelped, jumping back, and in that instant, his heart and mind collided, and the words he didn't intend to say came spilling out. "I love you." The words hung in the air like a foreign melody. Ethan froze, his face burning with embarrassment. He had meant to reassure her, to say something about the conduit or the core. But somehow, in the panic, he had confessed his feelings. His eyes darted toward Liara, expecting surprise, shock, or even anger. Instead, she was still for a moment, and then she whispered, almost breathlessly, "At last." Ethan's mind short-circuited. "What?" he stammered. His voice sounded small even to his own ears. "At last. What? Who?" Liara's eyes softened, her expression unreadable yet tender. "I have waited for someone to say that," she said quietly. "Not out of duty, not out of obligation, but honestly." Ethan blinked. The hum of the engines suddenly seemed louder, the shadows of the corridors deeper. You mean me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She inclined her head slightly, her long hair shimmering under the soft light. "Yes," she said, and her words carried a weight that made Ethan's knees weak. She had waited. For him, he didn't know whether to feel joy, confusion, or sheer disbelief. Before he could respond, the energy core beeped urgently. A series of small alerts blinked across the panel. Ethan jumped back into his engineer mode, forcing his racing heart aside. "The core. We need to stabilize it now," he said, trying to sound professional. But the warmth of her gaze lingered in his mind. Liara moved closer, her hands hovering over the same panel. "Show me," she said. Her tone was gentle, yet commanding. Ethan found himself explaining the process, trying to maintain focus. He noticed how she followed each instruction carefully, her fingers almost brushing the control surfaces. her expression concentrated. He realized she was learning, not just watching. As they worked together, Ethan's mind kept drifting to the earlier moment. He had said it, out loud, and she hadn't recoiled, hadn't dismissed it. Instead, she had whispered that she had been waiting. His chest tightened at the thought. Hours passed in a blur of technical adjustments and careful calculations. The core stabilized, the alerts ceased, and the hum of the engines returned to its steady rhythm. Liara stepped back, examining the system. "You are remarkable," she said softly, almost as if sharing a secret. "I understand why humans speak from the heart. 9, 9, 9, 9. Ethan felt his face heat again. I'm just trying to do my job," he muttered. She smiled faintly, a smile that made him forget how to breathe. "Your job requires more than skill," she said. "It requires courage and honesty." He wanted to respond, to say something witty or clever, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he simply nodded, unsure how to express the whirlwind of emotions inside him. For the next few days, everything changed. Liara found reasons to be near him, asking questions about human technology, human behavior, and even human emotions. She was curious, not in the distant way of a scholar, but in a personal, attentive way that made Ethan's heart race every time she entered the room. Ethan, for his part, struggled to maintain his composure. Every glance, every question, every subtle smile from the princess sent his thoughts spiraling. He began imagining conversations that had not yet happened, wondering if he should try to explain why he had said what he did, or if he should pretend it never happened. One evening, as they walked through the observation deck, the stars stretching endlessly beyond the glass panels, Liara spoke softly. "Do humans always speak their feelings so freely?" she asked, her gaze fixed on the swirling colors of a nearby nebula. Ethan hesitated. "Not always," he said finally. "Most of the time, humans are careful. But sometimes, it's better to speak honestly, even if it's scary." She looked at him then, her eyes reflecting starlight. "I see," she whispered. "And you are brave enough to speak what you feel, even when scared." He felt a shiver run down his spine. The words were not just observation. They were recognition, and in that recognition, he felt a bridge forming between two worlds, the human and the alien, the engineer and the princess, fear and honesty. The next challenge came sooner than expected. The starship's sensors detected an anomaly near a distant asteroid belt. The crew was tense, and protocols were strict. Ethan was expected to assist in rerouting power to shield the ship, and Liara insisted on accompanying him, claiming that she wanted to observe the technical procedures firsthand. As they worked side by side, maneuvering conduits and adjusting energy flows, Ethan felt the old nervousness return. But now, with Liara near him, it was mixed with a strange comfort. He wasn't alone in the vastness of space. Someone remarkable, someone who had waited for honesty, was beside him. When the task was complete and the sensors returned to normal, Ethan exhaled, feeling the weight of the moment. Liara's hand brushed against his, almost unintentionally, and he froze. She looked at him, her expression unreadable yet gentle. You are human, yet so different," she said quietly. "Different in the best way. You speak without fear when others would remain silent. You act when others would hesitate." Ethan swallowed, realizing that what he had thought was an accident, his confession might have been the first step into something far larger than he had ever imagined. He wanted to speak, to tell her how much she meant to him, but the words tangled in his throat. Instead, he nodded, and for a moment, the universe seemed still. In that quiet, Ethan realized that this starship, this alien world, and this incredible princess were no longer intimidating. They were a challenge he wanted to face, not just with skill or courage, but with the honesty he had shown in that single, accidental confession. And somewhere deep inside, he felt a spark of hope that perhaps this was only the beginning of a story that would change both their worlds forever. After the incident in the engine room, Ethan found himself thinking about Princess Liara more than he expected. He kept replaying her words, at last, in his mind. He could not understand fully why she had said them, yet they echoed in his heart like a quiet, persistent melody. For days, he worked alongside the alien crew, focusing on repairs and maintenance. But every glance from Liara made his pulse quicken, and every question she asked seemed to carry a deeper meaning than mere curiosity. Liara, for her part, observed Ethan with careful attention. She was fascinated not only by his technical skill, but by his honesty. In her culture, feelings were rarely spoken aloud. Duty, decorum, and restraint governed most interactions, and even among royalty, emotional expression was carefully measured. Yet here was a human who had spoken without fear, without protocol, without hiding behind tradition. It was refreshing, even inspiring. One morning, Ethan was called to the observation deck. The deck was a wide, transparent chamber, offering a view of the starship against the backdrop of a vast nebula. Liara was already there, her slender figure framed by the shifting lights of distant stars. She turned toward him, her violet eyes curious. "Ethan," she said softly, "I would like you to accompany me today. There is something I wish to show you." Ethan hesitated. "Show me." "What?" he asked, unsure what she meant. Liara's lips curved into a slight smile. "A part of my world humans rarely see," she replied. "It is important that you understand not only the technology of our ships, but the traditions and values we hold. And I think it will help you understand me as well." Ethan nodded, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Walking beside the princess, he tried to appear confident, though his mind raced. What could she possibly want to show him? A private part of her life? A lesson in diplomacy? Or something else entirely? They descended into a lower deck that resembled a garden more than a part of a starship. Luminous plants glowed softly under the artificial light, and small streams of water ran through narrow channels, producing a gentle, soothing sound. Ethan stopped for a moment, amazed. He had never seen anything like this on a spacecraft. "This is incredible," he said, his voice low with awe. "It feels like a living place," Liara nodded, walking beside him along a narrow bridge. "It is a place for reflection," she explained. "Our ancestors believed that understanding nature, even in artificial form, helps one understand oneself. I wanted you to see it, because I feel that humans and my people think differently. Seeing the world this way may help you understand me better." Ethan listened, absorbing her words. The way she spoke was calm, almost philosophical, yet there was an intimacy in her tone that made his chest tighten. He wanted to respond with something meaningful, something that would convey how he felt about her, but he could not find the words. Instead, he followed her quietly, watching the patterns of light on the water and the way her long hair shimmered as she moved. After a few minutes of silence, Liara spoke again. "Tell me, Ethan, do humans always act bravely, even when they are afraid?" Ethan thought for a moment. "I think sometimes," he said finally. "Sometimes people act bravely because they have no choice, or because someone else depends on them. And sometimes they act bravely because they feel it is the right thing to do, even if it scares them." Liara regarded him thoughtfully. "And what about you? Do you think you are brave?" Ethan hesitated, then shrugged. "I don't know. I try to do my job and help where I can. Sometimes that means taking risks. Sometimes it means speaking honestly. Even when it's hard." Her violet eyes softened. "I see," she said quietly. "That is admirable. Most of my people would never speak so freely. They hide their feelings behind duty and custom. But you are different." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest at her words. He wanted to tell her how he truly felt. But fear held him back. Fear of rejection, fear of misunderstanding, and fear of breaking some invisible rule he did not yet understand. Over the next several days, Ethan and Liara grew closer. She began including him in tasks she had never allowed humans to see before. They examined the ship's navigational arrays, analyzed energy fluctuations, and even reviewed diplomatic communications. Throughout these moments, she asked questions not only about technology, but about human life, emotions, and philosophy. Ethan began to understand that she was genuinely curious. She wanted to learn not for duty or strategy, but because she wanted to see the world through his eyes. And in those quiet exchanges, he discovered a side of Liara that few ever saw. Playful, thoughtful, and deeply intelligent. One afternoon, while inspecting a minor energy anomaly in a maintenance corridor, Ethan felt the familiar pang of nervousness as Liara appeared behind him. She watched intently as he adjusted a conduit, her expression calm but her presence overwhelming. "Ethan," she said softly, "why do humans fear their feelings so much?" He paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "I think we fear being misunderstood," he said. "We fear saying something and having it mean something different. And sometimes, we fear being rejected." Liara's eyes met his. "And yet, you spoke anyway," she said. Her voice carried no judgment, only curiosity. "You confessed your feelings to me without hesitation. That is rare." Bold. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He tried to find a reply, something to match her words, but he found only silence. She tilted her head slightly, a smile playing on her lips, and for a moment, the corridor seemed brighter than the stars outside. Their routine continued, but a tension grew within the crew. Some of the alien officers whispered among themselves, watching the closeness between Ethan and Liara with suspicion. Not all agreed that a human should have such access to the princess, let alone influence over her time and attention. Ethan noticed the stares and murmurs but tried to ignore them. His focus remained on the work, and on understanding Liara. Then came the challenge that tested their trust. A critical system near the engine core began showing unusual energy readings, threatening a potential overload. Ethan immediately began diagnosing the problem, but the complexity of the system meant he needed Liara's insight. "Ethan," she said, stepping beside him, "I will assist. I want to learn how you approach these challenges." Together, they worked quickly, moving between panels, adjusting energy flows, and recalibrating sensors. The task required complete coordination, and Ethan realized that he had never trusted anyone so fully with a complex, dangerous procedure. Liara's calm focus complemented his own methodical approach, and the two of them formed an unspoken rhythm. As the final adjustments were made, the anomaly stabilized. Ethan exhaled, feeling the tension drain from his shoulders. Liara turned to him, her expression a mixture of relief and admiration. "You handled that well," she said. "Not just your skill, your judgment. You act with purpose, not fear." Ethan felt his face heat. I could not have done it without you," he admitted. "Your guidance, it helped me stay focused." Liara's smile softened, and she reached out briefly, touching his arm. The contact was fleeting but deliberate. "I trust you, Ethan," she whispered. "More than I have trusted anyone in a long time." Ethan's mind spun. The whispers of court, the warnings of officers, all faded into the background. He realized that he and Liara had formed a bond that went beyond duty, beyond culture, and perhaps even beyond words. Later, as he returned to his quarters, Ethan reflected on the events. He had spoken honestly once, in panic, and it had changed everything. Liara had acknowledged his feelings, shown her curiosity, and allowed him into parts of her world humans rarely saw. He felt hope, yes, but also responsibility. This connection was fragile, subject to misunderstandings, cultural differences, and the scrutiny of the court. He could not be careless. Yet, despite the challenges, Ethan knew something profound had begun. He had glimpsed a side of Liara no one else saw. and she had glimpsed his heart. For the first time, he felt that he was not merely an observer on this alien starship. He was part of a story unfolding, one that might change both their worlds in ways neither could predict. And deep in the quiet of the starship, as the engines hummed and the stars glimmered beyond the observation windows, Ethan allowed himself a small, cautious hope. Perhaps this was only the beginning. Perhaps honesty, courage, and a willingness to connect across worlds could lead to something extraordinary. The days that followed, the energy core incident, were tense, yet filled with unspoken understanding. Ethan noticed subtle changes in the way Liara interacted with him. She would linger near him while he worked, asking thoughtful questions about human emotions, culture, and courage. Sometimes she would smile, sometimes simply watch him with a quiet intensity that made his chest tighten. He found himself anticipating her presence in ways he could not explain. One morning, the starship's alert system blared suddenly, cutting through the calm hum of the engines. Ethan jumped to his feet, adrenaline rushing through his veins. Liara was already moving, her posture composed yet urgent. "Ethan, follow me." "The anomaly is in the navigation core," she said. Her voice was steady, but Ethan could sense the weight of the situation in the way she moved. They raced through the corridors, the lights flashing red with each step. The navigation core was vital. Without it, the starship could drift uncontrollably into a dangerous asteroid field nearby. Ethan's mind raced as he prepared to interface with the alien systems. He was skilled in human engineering, but these systems were different, more complex, more precise, and less forgiving of error. As they entered the navigation chamber, the cause of the anomaly became clear. A sabotage attempt had disrupted the power flow, likely orchestrated by one of the rival diplomats who opposed Ethan's closeness to the princess. Panels were sparking, warning lights blinking furiously, and the air was tense with the faint smell of ionized metal. "We have to act fast," Liara said, her violet eyes focused. "The starship cannot survive another delay." Ethan nodded, his mind focusing entirely on the technical problem. He worked quickly, rerouting circuits, recalibrating sensors, and stabilizing energy flows. Liara assisted him, her movements precise and efficient, following the same rhythm as Ethan's. They did not speak unnecessarily. Every gesture, every adjustment, every glance was synchronized. Time seemed to stretch, each second loaded with tension. Sparks flew from the damaged conduits, and Ethan felt the heat brush against his arm. He clenched his teeth, refusing to let fear control him. Liara's calm presence beside him was a strange comfort. He realized that she trusted him, and that trust strengthened his determination to succeed. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only minutes, the navigation system stabilized. Warning lights dimmed, and the hum of the starship returned to its steady rhythm. Ethan exhaled, feeling the adrenaline drain from his body. He looked at Liara, whose expression had softened, her eyes reflecting relief and admiration. "You handled that remarkably," she said softly. "Not just with skill, but with courage. You did not hesitate even when the danger was clear." Ethan felt his face warm. I could not have done it without you," he admitted. "Your guidance, it helped me stay focused." Liara smiled faintly, her fingers brushing lightly against his arm in a gesture that was fleeting yet intimate. "We are stronger together," she whispered. "I trust you, Ethan." Fully. The moments of relief did not last long. After the emergency, the rival diplomat approached the princess and Ethan, their expression filled with thinly veiled hostility. "Princess Liara," they said smoothly, "are you sure it is wise to allow a human such proximity to sensitive systems? It is irregular, even dangerous." Liara regarded them calmly, her eyes sharp. "Ethan has proven his skill and loyalty," she said firmly. "Do not underestimate him." The diplomat's lips tightened. They could not argue further without risking public disapproval, and they retreated, leaving Ethan and Liara alone once more. Ethan felt a mix of relief and anxiety. The threat was not gone, only delayed, and he knew he would need to remain vigilant. Later that evening, Ethan returned to his quarters, trying to process the day's events. He replayed every moment with Liara in his mind, every touch, every glance, every word. Her whisper, "I trust you, Ethan," fully, lingered in his thoughts. He realized that their bond had deepened, and with that depth came both hope and uncertainty. The following days were quieter, though tension remained beneath the surface. Liara began inviting Ethan to more personal spaces within the starship. They walked along the observation decks, studying the stars, discussing the galaxy, and sharing insights about their respective worlds. Ethan learned about Liara's culture, her responsibilities, and the weight she carried as a princess. In turn, he shared stories of Earth, of human courage, and of moments where honesty had changed lives. One afternoon, they sat on a platform overlooking the starship's main engines. The glowing energy streams painted their faces in soft light, creating a scene that felt intimate and unreal. Liara turned to Ethan, her expression thoughtful. "Ethan," she said softly, "why do humans risk so much for people they care about? Why do you act bravely, even when it frightens you?" Ethan considered her question carefully. "I think it is because we understand the value of connection," he said. "We know that some things are worth more than our own comfort or safety. If someone depends on us, if someone matters, we act, even when we are afraid." Liara studied him silently, her eyes reflecting the glowing engines. "That is admirable and rare," she whispered. "I have watched countless beings follow rules, adhere to protocol, and avoid risk. But you choose honesty, action, and courage. That is why I whispered." At last, Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He had thought he understood her words before, but now he realized their full weight. She had been waiting for someone human to act and speak with sincerity, to break the invisible barriers of tradition and fear. He felt a mix of awe, gratitude, and a deep, unspoken affection. The starship's alarm sounded suddenly, breaking the quiet. Another anomaly appeared, this time in the outer shield generators. Ethan and Liara moved quickly, assessing the situation. The problem was severe, and they needed to act fast to prevent the starship from drifting into a dangerous asteroid belt. Working side by side, Ethan and Liara coordinated the repairs. Sparks flew, energy pulses hummed through the conduits, and the heat of exertion pressed against them. Yet through it all, they communicated with subtle gestures and quick glances, their rhythm perfect. It was as if they had become an unspoken team, their bond strengthening with every action. After a tense period, the generators stabilized, and the alarm ceased. Ethan exhaled, sweat dripping from his brow. Liara turned to him, her expression soft yet intense. "You have courage," she said simply, "and honesty. Both are rare qualities. I admire them." Ethan felt a warmth spreading through his chest. I admire you too," he said, his voice low but sincere. "You are remarkable in every way." Liara's eyes softened, and she reached out, placing a hand briefly on his arm. The touch was fleeting, yet deliberate. Ethan's heart raced. He realized that she not only accepted him but appreciated him for who he truly was. In the days that followed, Ethan and Liara continued to face small challenges aboard the starship, each situation strengthening their connection. They navigated technical repairs, handled diplomatic tensions, and explored parts of the ship usually restricted to humans. Through every moment, their trust and understanding deepened, and Ethan began to understand that what he felt for Liara was no longer simple admiration or infatuation, it was genuine affection. One evening, as the starship drifted silently through a field of glowing asteroids, Ethan found himself alone with Liara on the observation deck. The stars reflected in her violet eyes, and the soft hum of the ship created a sense of intimacy. "Ethan," she said softly, "do you believe humans and my people can truly understand each other?" Ethan paused, considering her question. "I think we can, if we are honest and brave," he said. "We need to be willing to listen, to act, and to trust. That is how understanding grows. Liara nodded slowly, her gaze steady. Then perhaps we can understand each other. Fully, she whispered. Her words carried a quiet promise. A bridge between two worlds that had seemed so different before. Ethan's heart soared. He realized that their bond was no longer fragile. It was real, built on honesty, courage, and mutual respect. And though challenges would continue, both from the starship and from external threats, he knew they would face them together. For the first time, Ethan felt that he was not merely surviving in an alien world. He was part of it, part of a story that was unfolding in ways he could not yet fully comprehend. And beside him, Princess Liara, who had waited for honesty and courage, was beginning to trust him with her heart. In that moment, as the starship glided silently through the glittering expanse of space, Ethan allowed himself to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, this was the beginning of something extraordinary, something that would transcend worlds, cultures, and fears. The days after the shield generator incident were tense, but hopeful. Ethan and Liara had proven themselves as a capable team, and their bond had grown stronger. Yet, outside forces remained, threatening the peace aboard the starship. The rival diplomat, still resentful of Ethan's closeness to Liara, had begun scheming openly, seeking ways to undermine both him and the princess. Ethan sensed it. Though he could not yet see the full extent of the threat, one afternoon, Liara approached him in the observation deck, her expression serious, yet calm. Ethan, we must be ready. There are those among my court who do not approve of our connection. They may attempt more drastic measures. Ethan nodded, feeling a surge of determination. Whatever happens, we face it together, he said firmly. She gave him a small, grateful smile. Together, she echoed. The tension escalated quickly. An urgent alert flashed across the ship's command panels. The sensors detected a fleet of unknown vessels approaching at high speed. They were not friendly. The princess's advisors immediately went into action, issuing commands and preparing defenses. Ethan followed Liara into the control room, where the crew was already tense with anticipation. Liara turned to him. Ethan, I need you at the energy control interface. Your understanding of the ship's systems may give us an advantage. Ethan moved quickly, his hands steady despite the rising tension. He had learned much from Liara about alien technology, and now it was time to apply it. The ships outside moved with precision, and Ethan realized that their attack was coordinated, aimed at disabling the starship's engines and navigation systems. He felt the weight of responsibility, knowing that failure could cost not only the ship but also countless lives. Liara remained beside him, her presence calm and grounding. Focus, Ethan, she said softly. We can overcome this if we act together. The battle began. Energy beams streaked across the void outside, striking shields and sending tremors through the hull. Ethan worked quickly, rerouting power, stabilizing shields, and coordinating with Liara to counter the attacks. She guided him with precise instructions, her violet eyes sharp with concentration. Yet there was a softness in her gaze that reassured him. Despite the chaos, Ethan and Liara found a rhythm. Their movements synchronized, their decisions complementing one another. He realized that this was more than a test of skill, it was a test of trust, courage, and understanding. He trusted her completely, and she trusted him. Together, they were unstoppable. The rival diplomat had attempted to interfere, giving false commands and trying to manipulate other crew members. Liara noticed immediately and countered them with authority, exposing the deception. Ethan watched in admiration as she commanded the ship with poise and intelligence, proving not only her leadership but her ability to protect those she cared for. After a tense period, the alien fleet began to retreat, unable to overcome the coordinated defense of the starship. Ethan exhaled, feeling the tension drain from his body. The ship was safe, and for the moment, the crisis had passed. Liara turned to him, her expression a mixture of relief and gratitude. You were extraordinary, she said softly. Your courage, your skill, and your trust. Without you, we might not have survived. Ethan felt his chest tighten. I only did what was necessary, he said. You guided me, Liara. I could not have done it alone. She smiled faintly, stepping closer. Ethan, you have shown me more than skill. You have shown honesty, bravery, and loyalty. And I trust you with more than the ship. I trust you with my heart. Ethan's mind reeled. The words he had hoped to hear, the acknowledgement he had dreamed of, were finally spoken. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. Liara, I never meant to frighten you when I said I love you before, but I meant it. I feel it deeply. And I want to be with you. Not just here, not just on this ship, but with you in every way I can. Liara's violet eyes softened, shimmering with unspoken emotion. She reached out, gently taking his hand. Ethan, you do not know how long I have waited for honesty like yours. I have observed many, but only you have spoken truthfully. Only you have acted with courage without hesitation. I love you too. Ethan's heart soared. For a moment, the chaos of the starship, the tension of diplomacy, and the uncertainty of their worlds all faded. All that existed was this moment, this connection, and the knowledge that they had found each other against the odds. The days that followed were filled with quiet joy and careful planning. Liara included Ethan more in her daily life, sharing insights into her culture and teaching him about alien customs and protocols. He learned quickly, adapting to new ways of thinking and seeing the galaxy. They explored parts of the ship, usually reserved for royalty, sharing laughter, curiosity, and moments of simple human connection. Despite the challenges, they grew closer, their bond strengthened by mutual respect and admiration. Ethan discovered that Liara was not only a princess but a thoughtful, intelligent, and deeply compassionate leader. She, in turn, saw in him a human who was brave, honest, and unafraid to speak his heart. Together, they became a symbol of cooperation, trust, and the possibility of understanding across worlds. One evening, they stood together on the observation deck, watching a distant nebula shift in brilliant colors. The hum of the starship beneath them was steady and comforting. Ethan looked at Liara, feeling a surge of gratitude and love. Liara, he said softly, I never imagined I would find someone like you. Someone who understands me, trusts me, and cares for me as I care for them. I want to explore the galaxy with you, learn your world, and share mine. Liara smiled, her hand resting gently on his. Ethan, I have waited for someone human to speak honestly. Someone to act with courage, without fear, and with trust. You are that person. Together, we can face anything. Our worlds, our challenges, even those who doubt us. We are stronger together. Ethan nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest that went beyond anything he had known. He realized that their connection was not just about attraction or admiration. It was about mutual respect, understanding, and a shared willingness to face the unknown. The weeks that followed were filled with preparation and exploration. Ethan and Liara worked together on the starship, refining systems, exploring new planets, and establishing alliances with other species. Each mission strengthened their trust and deepened their affection. They learned from each other, laughed together, and faced dangers with confidence and cooperation. The rival diplomat, seeing the strength of their bond and the loyalty they inspired in the crew, finally ceased attempts to interfere. Ethan and Liara had proven that honesty, courage, and trust could overcome fear, suspicion, and cultural barriers. One quiet evening, as the starship drifted near a field of sparkling asteroids, Ethan and Liara stood together on the observation deck. The galaxy stretched infinitely before them, and for the first time, Ethan felt at home not on Earth, not on this alien ship, but beside Liara. Ethan, Liara whispered, her violet eyes reflecting the light of distant stars. We have faced challenges, danger, and uncertainty, but we have found something rare and precious: trust, courage, and honesty. I am grateful to have you by my side. Ethan smiled, squeezing her hand gently. Liara, I am grateful for you. You have taught me more than I ever imagined about courage, patience, and the power of honesty. I want to be with you, not just here, but wherever life takes us. Together, we can face anything. Liara leaned closer, her lips brushing his cheek lightly. Together, she whispered. In that single word, Ethan felt the weight of their journey, the promise of their future, and the depth of their connection. As the starship continued its journey through the galaxy, Ethan and Liara stood side by side, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. They had discovered something extraordinary: love, trust, and partnership that transcended worlds, cultures, and fears. And in each other, they had found not only courage and honesty, but the beginning of a shared story that would continue across the stars. For Ethan, the accidental confession that had once filled him with panic had become the spark that ignited a bond stronger than any technology, challenge, or fear. And for Liara, the whispered words of a human engineer had broken the barriers of tradition and expectation, opening a path to trust, understanding, and love. Together, they looked toward the stars, knowing that whatever the galaxy held, they would face it side by side. And in that quiet moment, with the hum of the starship beneath them and the infinite expanse of space before them, they understood that honesty, courage, and a willingness to connect could change the course of their lives, and perhaps even the course of their worlds forever.